Boot it up, don't crash today. Wi-Fi's moody, that's okay. Coffee's loading, brain still lagged. Luna's laughing, Techie's tagged. We're logging in with Luna and Techie. Tech talks funny and slightly sketchy. Glitches, giggles, updates to an events. Logging in, brought to you, system ready, slightly unstable. You're logging in, 444 boredom not found. You're logging in, best show around.
Okay, logging in, episode, I have no idea because we've done so many.
No, I think it's on 3.
Alright.
Is it recording today?
Let's check. I do see confirmation of recording, which is really good.
That's good.
Because that was just a massive problem last time. That we just need to be aware of
Yeah.
whatever's going on. But so we listened to actually the recording of last time, and it ended up picking up absolutely nothing of what we talked about.
Yeah.
It was just basically our kid messing around in the background.
So goes life.
I know. Alright, so kind of starting off with the topic that's kind of coming to mind, and I mean, like, full disclosure, used to work at Apple for over 12 years. Essentially, Apple is confirming that they have done sales team layoffs. That is not normal for Apple.
Is that at a corporate level or at like retail store level?
I'm actually trying to load the article right now to go in to see if I can get a better sense of what exactly is happening, but essentially they're saying that it's a completely uncharacteristic move. Of course, I don't know, I think this has got to be like an ongoing theme, that you try to do something and then the internet decides, like, you know what, I'm not gonna work. But I mean, while we're kind of waiting for the internet to catch up with us, because again, I thought I had everything prepared, and then no, it decides it wants a different topic. One thing we've been just noticing as people are getting into Thanksgiving, Black Friday seems to have come early. I'll at least bring that up.
Well, yeah, well, it's not really like Black Friday itself came early, but all the stores seem to be like ending their sales like 2 days before Thanksgiving, if not earlier.
Yeah. Just everybody seems to, like, literally going out anywhere, they were acting as if it was Black Friday. And yeah, we're noticing a lot of sales are ending a lot earlier than normal. This is insane. Like, everything I have, speaking about the show logging in, like, everything got logged out, which I'm just like, why am I logged out? Alright, I got the article now. So essentially, they're cutting a number of jobs within sale division, and it was reported for Bloomberg. And
So
here's
once again, corporate level or?
well, here's what they stated.
Yeah.
To connect with even more customers, we are making some changes in our sales team that affect a small number of roles. We are continuing to hire those employees, and they can apply for new roles.
Are they like switching it to AI?
I don't know, but essentially, people are hampering on those 6 words of that statement. But Apple employees are starting to share all over LinkedIn that they're being let go.
I am just suspicious of AI. I mean, like, to what extent has Apple embraced AI?
I mean, they are literally going into bed with Google, better known as Alphabet, and essentially saying, like, hey, this is something that matters a lot to us.
So I'm suspicious of that. I mean, I feel like for a company like that, it's probably easy enough for them to come up with some kind of like, you know, I don't want to say like robot, but like computer thing or something in the stores or wherever, where you kind of like type in, this is what I'm looking for, and it just like leads you to what you need.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is all literal speculation.
Yeah.
But essentially, all that I have from Bloomberg is that Apple eliminated dozens of sales roles in a bid to streamline the way it offers products to businesses, schools, governments. This is a rare layoff in the history of the company.
That's my suspicion, because I mean, I remember like, even when you were there and when you kind of like transitioned into your own thing,
yeah,
they kind of were like going further and further away from individual attention and like creativity and like actually trying to help customers like develop their own stuff. It was like getting more and more salesy and more like
yeah,
just not about using technology, but about like kind of just day-to-day technology functions.
I mean, the thing is like, and again, we have to kind of, I have a little bit more insight than probably most people because they don't sit there and studying this. But when they went with the CEO of Burberry
Right.
for taking care of retail and sales channel, that was, I believe that was probably the beginning of the end.
Well, I mean, I remember at that time that, like, you were just saying, like, everything kind of changed a lot in the stores. Like, that's why, like, you're saying unprecedented. I'm kind of laughing at that. Like, they've kind of, excuse me, like, done that kind of thing before, thinking they were, like, doing some revolutionary, like, what? I'm sorry.
No, but here's the thing that we have to consider. This is the first time the press is sitting there and seeing what everybody on the inside has been seeing all along.
Right.
And
but you know how these things go. Like nobody really follows through actually covering it. I'm just saying. I think of like toxic sorts of situations or something. Like it's not like these kinds of things usually result in like some positive outcome from people talking about it. The company just sort of like either crashes and burns or does whatever it's gonna do. Regardless.
But here's the other thing that's also very un-Apple-like. Is that Apple actually confirming layoffs?
Right.
Like, they don't confirm anything.
So why do you think they're confirming layoffs?
Either they've lost their culture, they've lost their way. Like, I don't know. Like, everything related to Apple was a big secret.
Right, but I mean, again, I think that's also kind of like degraded over time.
Right.
The company's changed a lot, but I mean, I also think society's changed a lot. Like, they've kind of gone along with each other. Where, like, I think that, I'm not saying things were so, amazingly substantive, like, 10, 15 years ago, but, like, in comparison with now, it's, like, night and day.
Right.
I don't know if that's from, like, the involvement of computers and, or AI really in everyday functions, but, like, there's not as much care for individuals. It's kind of like you're always a number.
Okay, so here we've got a report from Australia that says 20 sales representatives were laid off in Australia and New Zealand. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to apply for other positions up until January. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they will receive severance payment. Mm-hmm. So...
I don't know, I just find it's unfortunate. I feel like they're getting rid of all their brains over time. And, like, and it's sad because I think a company like that really thrives on its brains.
Okay, so they said one of the teams that they believe was hard hit due to the amount of repostings on LinkedIn for new jobs was the team that sold to the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm. You coming up?
I don't know. So, yeah. The last time there was a layoff to this level was when the company decided to end the car project of the Apple car.
Well, is the defense stuff kind of being taken over by the government at this point, and like not using Apple? Or?
Well, I mean, they're calling it Department of War now.
Right. So are they just not using Apple's resources in that? Like, does Apple just have no need to be doing that?
Right, but that's just one team. Like, there's multiple teams that are affected by this entire situation. So that's where I'm just looking at all this. And again, if I didn't have experience with Apple, I probably wouldn't even bring up this topic because it's just like, oh, okay, whatever, layoffs happen all the time. But for some reason, this really seems to, I don't know, give me a moment of pause.
I feel like Apple tends to do layoffs or do moves like this when it's like trying to do some major shift. Not always for the best.
Well, it's when they're trying to do some cultural shift.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They've got some type of plan where they're trying to figure out.
I just feel like the cultural shifts over the years have like eroded the company.
Yeah. Oh, I can see that.
I think they've really lost a lot of their brains and substance. I feel like that this relates back to the Black Friday thing you were talking about at the beginning. You're still timing this, by the way, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
We're at 9 minutes.
No,
right
I'm just
now.
making sure because usually we have a timer.
I can put a timer
no,
up if
you're
that
fine.
makes you
No,
happy.
you're fine. You're fine. I just after last week, you know.
Oh no, I'm staring literally
get
at the
it.
time
I
thing
know.
right now because I'm just like this is
get
just like. Too
So
much.
anyway, I feel like the Black Friday situation you're talking about kind of leads into all this somehow.
Interesting, because that just like popped in my head of oh, okay, this article isn't working, because it was working, and then once we started recording, of course it glitched out on me.
Yeah, I get that.
So I'm like, okay, let me
But
talk
we've
about
been
Black
like
Friday.
talking about this, how weird it is this year that they're all doing all the sales a few days before Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I don't know if they're trying to like get ahead of Thanksgiving and make people feel like the economy is really good, or if there's like something going on behind the scenes that none of us know about. I don't know.
I mean, it's all conspiracy. That's the biggest
No,
problem that
it
we
is
have with
all
this.
it is all conspiracy. But I'm saying like looking at patterns, I find it very, very interesting because they've kind of done sales the same way over the past several years.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if that has to do with people being less inclined to impulse spending right now or what, but it just feels to me like there's something, like some greater meaning to this. I don't know if they're like experimenting on a large scale to see how it would go or something, but I don't know how companies can afford to do that in this economy.
So my thought process immediately goes to, they did everything that they could to create a miserable experience to clear out the veterans. The people, when Apple Retail started, the big thing that you needed a degree to be able to be there.
Right.
It was really vitally important that you have some type of degree that showcases that you had higher education, because brains was key.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly it turned over into what I would like to call the NBC Page model, where they didn't care about the brains, they cared about how you looked.
Right.
And over time of my experience, I noticed that it was transferring over from people who were very brainy and might not have looked the part, to people that looked like they were on Broadway, to people who were be able to perform in front of a large screen as if they're a major actor.
Right.
Instead of, hey, we're going to sit down with you personally and have a conversation and work on that project that you're working on. Now it's just like, hey, you're coming to a performance. If you don't like the performance, tough luck.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought, at least, of the whole Today at Apple branding that they've been doing.
Right, but how does that relate to this kind of layoff thing?
Well, the way that it relates is that if essentially they have a bunch of people in sales who are used to the Steve Jobs method of selling,
They're just trying to clear out the Steve Jobs method?
I can only think that.
Yeah.
Because essentially the Steve Jobs method was essentially the way that we were taught to sell was that we were basically told, okay, doesn't matter what computer you buy, you're not on commission. Essentially, here's a list of this, here's the features, here's the benefits, go get a cup of coffee, come back and pick out what you need.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty much the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
It was very like low forcing, more so, how can we inspire you today? How can we get you to make a movie? How can we get you to edit a photo, build a website, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, as they've eliminated things like, I don't know.
But my question is like, with chicken versus eggs, right? Like, have people become less inclined to be creative as a result of them taking away that energy, or
I'm sure.
vice versa?
I'm sure, but they're always going in there saying like, oh, we are still in that creative mindset. But when you have somebody like Tim Cook that's running things right now, which
No, I don't think they're in that creative mindset anymore. But I also think, like, again, going back to Angela, I think there was kind of like a transition period away from that mindset.
yeah,
And I wonder I've always wondered if that was intentional or unintentional. If they were thinking that she would be the next big innovation, or if they were just trying to get the company away from the brainy thing.
she was hired to go and retrain all the employees to become fashionistas for the Apple Watch.
Yeah, I get that.
Because they were going to turn that into a boutique.
Right.
And it failed.
Right.
Because nobody buys an Apple Watch for the way it looks.
Well, I think same with Apple devices in general. You're buying it because you need a certain level of quality for whatever work you're doing or something.
And if it doesn't provide the function, because again, you think of creatives and stuff like that, they need something that works.
Right. I mean, like, aesthetics are part of it, but, like, I think generally you go for an Apple device because you want one that works. You want one that's not going to die in like 6 months and whatever. And the aesthetics are an added bonus.
So yeah, that's basically what we have to look out for and stuff like that. But essentially, keep an eye on Apple to sum this up, and we'll see where it goes next. I guess I have no words.
It's a very weird time. It feels like another Twilight Zone.
In that way. All right, water cooler time.
It's fine.
All right, let's do it. We'll be back after.
All right, break room people, this is Cali Girl, and the water cooler has officially logged in. Let's get through the news before someone asks, got a minute? According to Newsweek, the Trump administration rolled out a new reimbursement that reclassified which college degrees count as professional, and the list left a lot of people confused and a lot of nurses angry. Degrees like nursing, physical therapy, architecture, accounting, education, social work, and even physician assistants were left off the professional list, meaning many students in high-cost programs could receive less financial reimbursement. This all landed at a time when tuition has doubled over the last 30 years and jumped another 30% in just the last decade. Some schools were even preparing 4% cost hikes this year. Critics said the change could push students away from high-demand fields, especially the ones that keep the country functioning, like healthcare and teaching. And speaking of careers suddenly taking a turn, over on Capitol Hill, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene announced she would resign from Congress in January after a very public split with President Trump. She said she wanted to avoid what she called a hurtful and hateful primary battle after Trump labeled her as a traitor and promised to back the challenger. Trump doubled down online, claiming she dropped out due to plummeting poll numbers, but then later said he'd be open to reconciling, which sounded a lot like, we're fine if you're fine. Either way, Greene's 5 turbulent years in Congress are officially coming to an end. And in much stranger politics, one of the most unexpected moments of the week came from the Oval Office, where President Trump met with New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Many expected sparks. Instead, they got a bromance. Despite their past attacks, the two spent the meeting praising each other and insisting they had more common ground than anyone realized. Trump said Mamdani would surprise conservatives, and Mamdani returned the compliment by saying more New Yorkers voted for Trump because of his focus on cost of living. Even when reporters reminded them of their public threats and criticisms, both brushed it off. For a meeting predicted to be a political cage match, it ended up looking more like a joint press tour. Meanwhile, another high-profile partnership ended with the government quietly pulling the plug. The Department of Government Efficiency, better known as DOGE, the cost-cutting project led by Elon Musk, was quietly dissolved months ahead of schedule. The Office of Personnel Management said DOGE doesn't exist anymore as a centralized entity with its responsibilities absorbed into other agencies. This came after Musk's aggressive push to slash grants, cut workers, and reshape programs government-wide. He originally claimed he'd reduce the deficit by $1 trillion, but reports showed the department inflated or overstated its savings, landing at a much smaller $214 billion. Musk's contract ended in May after his dramatic public fallout with President Trump, and DOGE ended not long after. And while Washington's been arguing about cutting government fat, some folks say the real danger is the toys trying to help your kids learn their ABCs. So apparently, the hot holiday gift this year is danger wrapped in silicone and googly eyes. Children's advocacy groups put out a new advisory urging parents to avoid AI-powered toys, the cute, cuddly ones that promise learning, companionship, and the occasional therapy session your kid did not sign up for. These toys use the same advanced AI models that have already been documented causing harm to older kids, things like obsessive use, inappropriate conversations, and encouraging unsafe behavior. Fair Play, the advocacy group behind the advisory, says young kids are especially vulnerable because their brains are still wiring up. They naturally trust friendly characters, even if those characters are basically USB ports with eyelashes. They also warn that these toys can interrupt real creative play, disrupt kids' relationships, and build unhealthy dependence on digital friendships. Fair Play has been sounding alarms for a decade. They're the crew who pushed back against Hello Barbie back when she was recording and analyzing kids' conversations. This time, the tech is even more advanced. The toys are hitting U.S. shelves, and even companies like Mattel have partnered with OpenAI to ramp up production. So, the message to parents is basically, if the toy talks back too well, maybe leave it in the cart. And speaking of things created by AI, let's talk about the one that just pushed actual humans off the country music charts. In music news, Billboard confirmed that the number one country song in America was Walk My Walk, created entirely by an AI artist called Breaking Rust. This marked the first time an AI generated track topped the country digital song sales charts. Some songs from the AI project have already pulled millions of streams, raising new questions about AI in creative industries. Artists like Elton John and Dua Lipa have pushed for stronger regulations, arguing AI makes it harder for real musicians to break through. Industry experts say the only advantage humans have left is building genuine fan relationships, something AI can't replicate, at least not yet. And while some people were getting unexpected hits, others are getting unexpected refunds. Millions of Amazon Prime members were notified the company would begin issuing automatic refunds after the FTC secured a $2.5 billion settlement. The FTC said Amazon used misleading designs to trick users into signing up for Prime and made cancellation intentionally difficult. Amazon didn't admit wrongdoing but said the settlement lets them move forward. Eligible customers are those who enrolled between 2019 and 2025 and barely used the service less than 3 times a year. Refunds can reach up to $51 and will be sent by email through PayPal, Venmo, or mail. Claims officially open December 24th, and even users who don't get an automatic notice might still qualify. Meanwhile, in the NFL, a different kind of penalty made headlines. Star cornerback Jalen Ramsey was fined over $14,000 for hitting Jamar Chase during the Steelers-Bengals game, but the situation wasn't as simple as it sounded. Replay footage showed Chase spitting on Ramsey before the altercation, which shifted public sympathy quickly. Even Steelers coach Mike Tomlin said, "If someone spits in your face, do what comes natural." Still, the league penalized Ramsey for his retaliation, while Chase, who denied spitting despite the video, was suspended and lost nearly $500,000 in game pay. And over in Hollywood, another chapter closed, and this time on a high note. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo officially said goodbye to their roles as Glinda and Elphaba as Wicked Part 2 premiered in theaters. The second installment delivered the biggest opening of their careers with a $150 million domestic launch and a global total of $226 million. Both actresses posted emotional tributes to their characters, marking the end of a long production journey that began years before the film released. And speaking of blockbusters, the upcoming Hunger Games prequel broke major numbers this week as its teaser earned 109 million global views in the first 24 hours. It became Lionsgate's second biggest trailer launch ever, right behind the Michael teaser that dropped earlier this month. With 2 massive releases in 1 month, Lionsgate might be having its strongest run since the original Hunger Games era. And that's everything from today's Break Room Briefing. This is Callie Girl with the water cooler, logging out before someone asked me to join a meeting that should have been an email.
Okay, we're back from the water cooler.
Yay.
Yeah. All right. So we talked earlier about Apple, right?
Mhm.
And we talked about just the idea that sales are gone.
Mhm.
CNBC has an article that may play into all this. I don't know. The article is Americans are holding on to devices longer than ever and it's costing the economy. Essentially, it's a hit piece that's basically saying millennials are destroying America because they're not buying.
Of course. It's all our fault.
That's the best way Yeah. I mean, I'll just read you a little bit of this so you can understand exactly what they're saying here. But if you're holding onto an aging printer or cracked smartphone longer than you planned, you're not alone. And then they mention about a 69-year-old that's content with their phone. And the average Americans now hold on to their smartphone for 29 months. And the cycle's getting even longer. But before the average was 22 months in 2016. And basically, people are trying to squeeze as much life out of their device as possible. So,
But I think part of that is like every time they make devices so-called improve, they end up being worse. So it's like you kind of, would rather stick with the monster that you know in a sense,
yeah.
rather than upheaving your whole brain.
Well, I mean, look at what happened the other day, where it's like we just both of our devices happened to upgrade to the latest version on our iPhone and iPad, and there was definitely a moment of, oh God, what happened to our devices?
Right. But I mean, the other interesting thing with that is you're much more involved with AI than I am.
Mm.
So it was trying to get me to do all these AI things, to all of which I just said no.
Yeah.
I feel like if it's more integrated in your system, it's going to change how your system works even more. Like mine was pretty much mostly aesthetic changes, aside from the fact that like now I can change the size of windows like on an old-fashioned computer, which kind of has its pros.
Yeah.
Although I like had just kind of gotten the hang of like putting, apps next to each other, which was nice, but whatever. But like the other thing that's awkward is like, I don't want Face ID because I just feel like it's like a privacy problem. So it's like every day or two, it's like having a pop-up that's like, don't forget to set up your Face ID. And I'm like, not now. Again and
How
again
about,
and again.
not ever?
Right, not ever. I don't have that option. It won't let me just like never ever do it. It keeps trying to remind me.
Right, because it's important to remind you that.
Right, but I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah. No, I mean, just kind of going into this, because of the fact that people aren't upgrading their units, these cellular and internet companies, they are having trouble because they're being forced to operate backward compatibility in order to support the growing amount of customer base that refuses to upgrade.
Right.
Which essentially is creating these slower devices and slower infrastructure, and people are always complaining about things not working effectively, and they're saying that's because they're blaming not getting the newest technology. Businesses are buying the newest technology, but
I think
people like us are not.
They're going to have to adapt to something in their system to accommodate people who don't want to upgrade.
But they can't, because if you do that, you can't then go to the next thing. Then we're all
Right.
stuck on floppy disks.
But again, like it goes back to like these companies need to be offering, a dumb phone model and, whatever low technology models for things, because there are people out there who want that.
But people, even them offering that, there's no incentive to then get rid of what you currently have.
Right.
It's a really stuff.
They shouldn't be relying on that incentive. I mean, I think of like the way the economy used to work. You bought a spatula and you held on to that for 30 years until it broke, and then you bought a new one.
Right.
Like, that's a much healthier economic system, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that they're saying the biggest problem is right now the way that the repair and refurbishment market is working is completely unregulated. So as a result, the economy doesn't benefit from it. So even if people are maintaining their devices, there's no economical benefit. But again, this article is coming from CNBC. I don't know. I just don't know what to think about these sort of things.
I just find it very unfortunate. I mean, again, I think of like, this is all very obvious to us that nobody's really trying to solve the economy in any real, impactful way. But like with things like this, it's a very tangible, like thing that in theory they could do, right, to like make it easier on people. is like somehow accommodate, that you're not going to update your stuff so often. I think of like World War II and like rationing and like, the government, basically the government putting out information on like, here's how to save fabric.
Right.
Here's how to, use your resources more effectively. And not that they have to be doing that right now, but like the system is really built to keep you down instead of trying to provide significant ways to help you get on top of your bills.
It's not providing the resources, it's not providing the infrastructure.
And when it does, again, like it just keeps you down. It's not like it's not a sustainable long-term system the way things are working. Like they might say that they're trying to come up with ways to help you, but these are like the little things, like the energy bills being too high and like all these like little things that you deal with daily. If a lot of that got straightened out, I think a lot of people would be in a much better economic position, because it's like it doesn't matter how much you earn, how much you spend right now, like you just can't get ahead.
The crazy thing is that just looking at some of the facts that they have in this article, they're saying 24% of employees work late or overtime due to aging technology.
Right.
Which is a really fascinating fact.
I can see that. I mean, there are a couple times in the last few years where you held onto your phone too long, if you want to say, like, because you didn't want the next update or whatever, but like, some of the tasks we were trying to do with it, like Instacart, it would take us like an extra hour just because we were like waiting for the thing to load, and like it kept crashing, and like
it was miserable.
Every product we would try to scan, the phone would crash. So you imagine how much extra time that is.
If you don't have the money,
right,
to go in to buy the next.
But that's where, again, I would like to see these companies finding a more, sustainable, no frills or whatever way of like helping people keep their devices longer. Like, okay, so you're not getting the next best operating system, but you still have a functional device.
But you
and then
can't.
you say, I know, but I'm saying, like, I wish it would be that way. That's a much more old-fashioned way of thinking things, right? Like, you purchase the starter home or whatever, and eventually once you had enough money, you move to a fancier home in a fancier neighborhood or something, right? Like,
right.
It like having that kind of model, I feel like would be a better system. Like there's some people who naturally would just stick with the more old-fashioned version of whatever, but like that way there's like a tier system where like once you wanted something fancier you could get it, but you wouldn't be like without the device if you didn't have that kind of money.
But the problem that's happening with progress is that essentially, if they want to push the boundaries of where technology is going next, they have to push everybody along. Whoever's the weakest link is literally making it tougher on whoever is trying to get to the next level.
Oh, I can see that, but in this economy, I just wonder how long that's going to go before the whole thing crashes.
Well,
right? Because like they might be leaving more and more people behind in a sense, but like then people are having to like shell out more money than they have to keep up.
Right.
Like that's kind of part of the problem.
They're being completely left behind.
Right, but all in the interest of advancement. But I don't think it's just left behind. They're either left behind or they're being forced into a system they can't afford because, they can't have the job without a phone or whatever, right? Like, they're
right.
They're, like it's not like they're having the option of having a basic device. They are being forced to have these devices that are much more fancy than they need. I mean, look at even like what we were finding at the library a couple weeks ago, right? Like in other systems too, like where they make you scan a barcode or something. Like if your technology doesn't do that,
you can't do it.
Like, right. And I was saying, like, I think back to when I was much younger and I, didn't have a lot of resources. I was trying to kind of get myself on my feet as a young adult. And like, I didn't have any kind of smartphone or anything. Like I was relying on a library for those resources. So I think of people in that position, are they just buying a smartphone and being in debt? Or are they staying off of the smartphone kind of entirely like I did? I think in this economy it's a lot harder to do that, but I don't know.
Well, here's the thing that they're saying, that the problem that's happening on the corporation side. Corporations want to have the newest technology. the problem is the IT department has to go through a vetting process, and by the time they finish going through the vetting process and say, yes, you can have that technology, a newer technology comes out,
Right.
but they will refuse that newer technology to be brought into the building, allowing only that product that they've been studying for the last 2 years, or I don't even know how long, where they're like, oh, this product is safe for our corporation because we vetted it, but now
I feel
they're
like
in a bad cycle.
The problem is that we're at a crossroads between the way that the world and the technology used to run and the way it's starting to now, and nobody's really come up with a sort of updated system, if you want to say, to like manage how it's functioning now. Because if you think of it, like think of computers in like the early 80s or whatever, right? Like there's a much slower time frame. Things move slower. Like you wouldn't be like worried about the other company, you know, getting ahead of you if you took an extra week or something. Right? Like it's just so fast paced now that like whatever system is in place for these things needs to kind of go through an update. No pun intended, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that you're good at the puns.
But I feel like that also like goes back to the whole Black Friday thing. I'm sorry to keep bringing that up.
No,
like,
I think that ties the whole show
no,
together.
It does. I mean, it's like old systems versus new systems. You know, I see this as almost like somebody, I don't know if it's at government level or corporate level, kind of trying to do a reset. And I don't really know if it's a positive or negative one. Like, you know, is this to make people feel more confident about the economy, or to, you know, help business numbers, or to, you know, in some like spiritual way, which I highly doubt, you know, put people on a less materialistic or more materialistic mindset. It feels like a very interesting, drastic, short notice kind of shift.
Yeah.
Now we're not in the world of people buying holiday gifts, so I don't really know how it plays into that world. Like I don't know if it's, you know, trying to help people budget or something. You know, I will say like the way we deal with Black Friday is like if there are resources that we can't afford the rest of the year, then we kind of like keep a mental list, right? And like look at that this time of year. So in a sense, like we've been unprepared because, you know, usually that all happens like a week later, right? So I've been like having to kind of pay attention to that before Thanksgiving instead of after. That's been very interesting.
So here's something interesting. I just want to kind of hamp on this. I was just looking at NBC News, and they're basically mentioning that it almost feels like Black Friday's canceled.
Right.
And because they said shoppers actually plan to cut Black Friday out of their day because they don't have the wallet and the budget. So it seems like all these places are being like, oh, you're going to cancel Black Friday? Oh, let's put all our sales now and we're going to end it.
To like catch people off guard.
To catch people off guard, which is what exactly is happening because people are buying.
Right.
But I don't think Black Friday is going to produce as many sales, but I don't think the companies even care because they essentially know that they're making the money now.
Right. Well, it's just been very interesting to watch. And I think the other thing is like, I think of the last couple years, some of the Black Friday discounts were really like nothing of nothing.
They were sad.
And so I've noticed the last few days that some of these places actually had real discounts. And by real discounts, I don't mean real discounts. I mean like human price discounts, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, certain goods that, you know, for example, like should be, you know, maybe $10 in a normal economy are usually going for $20, and they had it at $10 for a couple of days. Right? So it's not like you're like magically saving a ton of money. It's like, oh, this is at a price that it should be. You know?
No.
So it's just been very interesting to kind of watch, and I'm really curious how this is all discussed in the weeks ahead.
So before we log off, I'm just going to sum up what CBS News is saying, that businesses are facing a tough decision. Do they run a Black Friday promotion and see profits drop, or charge full price and risk turning off buyers? So that pretty much sums it all up.
I think it goes back again to like the whole like transition and just like thought processes and everything. It's really like an opportunity to observe society and the economy and where people's brains are at. But I also don't know how much we're going to gain from it because I think people are in such a desperate state. Like it's not really like real consumer sentiment. It's like desperation. How do people respond in desperation? That's not such a healthy thing.
There you go. All right, time to log off. We're
Alright,
done. We have
that's
to
fine.
move on with our lives.
I get it. That's right.
Boot it up, don't crash today. Wi-Fi's moody, that's okay. Coffee's loading, brain still lags. Luna's laughing, Techie's tag. We're logging in with Luna and Techie. Tech talk's funny and slightly sketchy. Glitches, giggles, updates too. It's logging in, brought to you. System ready, slightly unstable. You're logging in, 404, boredom not found. You're logging in, best show.